Well, just over a week from the first round of legislative elections here in France, opinion polls are suggesting that President Emmanuel Macron's centrist camp could fail to secure a majority. His rivals on the left and right say the former investment banker fails to fully appreciate the pocketbook worries of the vast majority of French voters. Well, to discuss this and more, I'm joined in studio by our international affairs commentator, Philip Turle. So, Philip, take us through what these polls are saying.
Well, there's good news and bad news for President Macron, Sharon. And the good news is that in previous times, when a president was elected or re-elected, there were legislative elections and the president always got a majority and was able to push through the legislation that he wanted. And the electoral process in France was overhauled in 2002 to make that even easier for the president, as the presidential term was whittled down from 7 years to 5, the same as the parliamentary term. That was to avoid what was so-called in France cohabitation, or a president from one political movement governing with a parliament made up basically from a different political movement. So this time round, Macron is hoping to prevent that. This is what the voting intentions are predicted to be for the first round or for the legislative elections that are coming up in 2 rounds in just over a week's time and 2 weeks' time. 27% for Renaissance. Renaissance is the new name for Emmanuel Macron's La République en Marche, or the Republic on the Move party. It's been rechristened Renaissance. There's the left-wing Union, which is led by the firebrand, far-left leader Jean-Luc Mélenchon from the France Unbowed party on 25%. The RN is the national rally of Marine Le Pen on 21%, the former National Front in France. The Républicain is the Conservative party, former party of Jacques Chirac and Nicolas Sarkozy, the former French presidents. They are only on 10% now. And Reconquête, what is that? Reconquête is the far-right party of the former television interviewer whose name is Éric Zemmour. He's given 6%. So how does that work out as far as possible seats in the National Assembly are concerned? Well, it looks like President Macron is going to maybe obtain a majority. We have those seats we can show you here. The total he needs is 289. That is just over half of the total number of seats, 577. So what he needs to obtain Emmanuel Macron a majority is 289 seats. I hope you can understand what I'm saying. And he is given between 275 and 310 in the latest opinion polls, ahead of the left-wing Union on 170 to 205. But if he gets below 289, then that may cause some problems for him in trying to push through legislation, particularly pension reform in France, which is one of the big items on the agenda over the next 5 years. So it's a lot less than the 308 seats that Emmanuel Macron won in 2017. 308 is quite a lot more than 289.
So he's under pressure heading into these elections then. What, Philip, is behind the fall in support for the president?
Well, there are several reasons. The first one is that there's a general fatigue with Emmanuel Macron after 5 years in office. And as you were saying in your introduction, there is definitely a feeling in France that Emmanuel Macron is not really in contact with the everyday needs of the average French person. He's still perceived as being the president of the rich, and I think many people are reluctant to give him the chance to push through legislation. There's also a fear of abstention in these elections, people just not turning out to vote because they don't have any confidence in the political movements in France. There are a couple of other reasons that he is losing support. One of them is because of this guy here, whose name is Damien Abad. He's a recently appointed Minister for Solidarity and for handicapped people. He's accused, the second day after he was nominated in the new government led by a female Prime Minister, Elisabeth Borne, Damien Abad was accused of rape, 2 cases of rape dating back to 2010 and 2011. They've not been proved, but it has thrown a shadow of doubt over him and also on Emmanuel Macron's decision to pick him as a minister, because many are saying, well, look, if Emmanuel Macron knew that he had been accused of rape, why did he name him as a minister in the new government? And there is a second reason that people are losing support, and that's because of the terrible events at the Stade de France last Saturday in the match between Liverpool and Real Madrid, which ended up with many many fans from Liverpool not being able to get into the Stade de France, being kept outside for hours due to violence, and accusations by the French Interior Minister Gérald Darmanin that they were non-ticket holders or holding illegal tickets. That's something that's been refuted by the Liverpudlian side, and 67% of French people believe that the Interior Minister Gérald Darmanin is not telling the truth. He's just trying to cover up the incompetence of the French law and order forces, the police and the gendarmerie. So that's another aspect that has come as an unwelcome piece of news for Emmanuel Macron just ahead of these legislative elections.
And speaking of those elections then, if he fails to get a majority in Parliament, will the President be able to push through his policies?
Well, that's the big question. The answer to that is probably, not certainly, but probably. That's because if he doesn't win an election, he can count on the support of two people. The first one is François Bayrou, who is from the Centre Modem party. That's him here. Been in politics in France for years. He was a former agriculture minister and a former justice minister under Emmanuel Macron during his first term in office. He will support the president if he has to, if he's asked to. And so will this man, who is Edouard Philippe, who was the former prime minister, the first prime minister under Emmanuel Macron, who's formed a new group, a centre-right movement called Horizons. He's also offered his support for the president. So even if he doesn't get that majority, he will get the support of other political movements, even from Les Républicains, the Conservative Party, I think, would probably support him. So he may get that legislation through, but it won't be quite so easy as it was during his first 5 years in office.
Philip Turle, thank you so much for that look ahead to the elections, set to be perhaps a tighter race than we might have expected a few months ago.